was sitting in my cozy living room, the soft light of the lamp casting warm shadows on the walls, when I received a package from my friend James. James had always been an adventurer, constantly traveling to far-flung corners of the globe in search of the unusual and the extraordinary. This time, his travels had taken him to the remote villages of the Carpathian Mountains in Eastern Europe, a region steeped in myths and legends. The package was wrapped in old brown paper and tied with a piece of twine. There was a note attached to it, written in James's familiar scrawl. "Hey, thought you might find this interesting. Found it in a dusty old bookstore in one of those tiny villages. The shopkeeper said it was cursed, but I figured you'd like it. Enjoy." James as I smiled, shaking my head at James's typical disregard for warnings. I untied the twine and carefully unwrapped the paper. Inside was an old manuscript, its cover worn and faded, the pages yellowed with age. The title was in an archaic script, but I could make out the words Lycanthrope and Chronicles. Intrigued, I settled into my armchair and began to read. The manuscript told the story of a small village named Varkolak, nestled deep within the Carpathians. It described the village as picturesque, with cobblestone streets, quaint cottages, and a dense forest surrounding it. But Varkolak held a dark secret, one that the villagers spoke of only in hushed whispers. The story centered around a young woman named Ilara who lived in Varkolak during the 18th century. Ilara was known for her beauty and kindness, but she was also marked by tragedy. Her parents had died when she was young, leaving her to fend for herself. Despite her hardships, Ilara remained hopeful and strong, working as a seamstress to make a living. One cold winter evening, as Ilara was walking home from the market, she heard a strange noise coming from the forest. It was a low, guttural growl that sent a chill down her spine. She quickened her pace, clutching her shawl tightly around her shoulders. The growling grew louder, and Ilara's heart pounded in her chest. She glanced over her shoulder, but saw nothing. As she approached the edge of the forest, something leaped out at her from the shadows. It was a creature unlike any she had ever seen, a monstrous beast with glowing red eyes and sharp, gleaming fangs. Ilara screamed and tried to run, but the creature was too fast. It lunged at her, knocking her to the ground. Just as the creature was about to strike, a group of villagers arrived, brandishing torches and pitchforks. They managed to drive the beast away, but Ilara was badly injured. The villagers carried her back to the village, where the local healer did everything she could to save her. Ilara survived, but she was never the same. The attack had left her scarred, both physically and emotionally. She became withdrawn, rarely leaving her cottage. The villagers noticed that strange things began to happen whenever Ilara was around. Animals would grow restless, and children would have nightmares. Some claimed to see a shadowy figure lurking near her home at night. Months passed, and the village was plagued by a series of brutal murders. The victims were found torn apart, as if by a wild animal. Fear gripped Varkolak, and the villagers began to suspect that Ilara was somehow connected to the killings. They remembered the creature that had attacked her, and whispers of lycanthropy spread through the village like wildfire. Desperate to protect themselves, the villagers sought the help of a local hunter named Andre. Andre was known for his skill and bravery, and he agreed to hunt down the beast that was terrorizing Varkolak. He believed that the creature was a werewolf, a human cursed to transform into a wolf-like monster under the light of the full moon. Andre set out into the forest, armed with silver bullets and a determination to end the terror. He tracked the beast for days, following its trail of blood and destruction. Finally, he came face to face with the creature in a moonlit clearing. To his horror, he recognized it as Ilara. Realizing that she was the werewolf, Andre hesitated. He knew that killing her would end the curse, but he also knew that Ilara was a victim herself. Torn by his emotions, Andre aimed his rifle and fired. The silver bullet struck Ilara in the heart, and she collapsed to the ground, reverting to her human form. As Ilara lay dying, she whispered a curse upon the village. She vowed that Varkolak would never know peace, that the werewolf's curse would plague the village for generations to come. And so, with her dying breath, Ilara condemned Varkolak to a future of fear and bloodshed. The manuscript ended abruptly, the final pages missing or torn away. I sat back, my mind racing with questions. Had James truly found a cursed manuscript, or was this just an old folktale? I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story, that the curse of Varkolak was still very real. As I pondered the tale, I heard a strange noise outside my window. It was a low, guttural growl that sent a chill down my spine. I glanced outside but saw nothing. The night was dark and still, but the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. I tried to shake off the unease and went to bed, but sleep eluded me. The growling echoed in my mind, and I couldn't help but wonder if the curse of Varkolak had followed the manuscript to my home. The next day I couldn't get the manuscript out of my head. The vivid descriptions, the chilling narrative, and the eerie growl I'd heard the night before. It all seemed too coincidental. Determined to learn more, I called James. "Hey James, got your package?" "Thanks for that," I started, trying to keep my voice casual. "Did you read it yet?" James asked. "I did. It's unsettling, to say the least." "Do you really think there's any truth to it?" James chuckled. "I knew you'd say that. Honestly, who knows?" The locals seemed pretty convinced. They told me some crazy stories about Varkolak and its cursed history. "Did anything strange happen while you were there?" "Well, besides the shopkeeper's warnings and some weird noises at night, not much. But then again, I wasn't there long enough to really dig in." "Strange noises?" I pressed. "Yeah, howling at night. It could have just been wolves, though. You know how superstitious those mountain villages can be?" I didn't share my own experience from the previous night, not wanting to sound paranoid. "Thanks, James. This has definitely piqued my interest." After hanging up, I decided to dig deeper. I spent the day researching Varkolak, the Carpathians, and werewolf legends. The village of Varkolak seemed almost impossible to find on modern maps, as if it had been erased from existence. However, I did find references to similar legends from the region, tales of cursed villages and supernatural creatures. That night, I sat down with the manuscript again, hoping to find some overlooked detail. As I turned the fragile pages, I noticed a faint, almost invisible, writing in the margins. It was in a different handwriting, more recent and less formal. Using a magnifying glass, I managed to decipher some of the notes. They seemed to be observations, perhaps from a previous owner of the manuscript. "Full moon approaching. Must prepare. Found another victim. Signs point to lycanthropy. Ilara's curse spreads. How to stop it." These notes suggested that someone else had been investigating the curse of Varkolak. My heart raced as I realized that the manuscript might hold clues to stopping the curse. As I delved deeper, the growling outside my window returned, louder and more menacing than before. This time, I couldn't ignore it. Arming myself with a flashlight and a kitchen knife, I stepped outside. The air was cold and the moon was full, casting an eerie glow over my backyard. The growling grew closer, and I could see movement in the shadows. My heart pounded as I edged forward, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. Then, I saw it, a pair of glowing red eyes watching me from the edge of the forest. The creature stepped into the light, revealing itself to be a monstrous wolf-like figure, just as described in the manuscript. Panic surged through me, but I stood my ground, gripping the knife tightly. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice trembling. "What do you want?" The creature snarled and took a step closer. I could see its fangs, sharp and glistening in the moonlight. My mind raced, trying to remember anything from the manuscript that could help me. "Ilara," I whispered. "Are you Ilara?" The beast paused, its eyes narrowing. For a moment I thought I saw a flicker of recognition. Then, with a bone-chilling howl, it lunged at me. I barely managed to dodge, falling to the ground as the creature's claws swiped through the air where I had just stood. Scrambling to my feet, I ran back towards the house, the beast hot on my heels. I slammed the door shut and bolted it, my hands shaking. The creature pounded against the door, snarling and growling, but the heavy wood held. I knew I couldn't stay in the house forever. I had to find a way to stop the curse, to end this nightmare. Remembering the notes in the manuscript, I realized that I needed to prepare for the next full moon. If the legends were true, silver was my best bet. The following days were a blur of frantic preparation. I scoured antique shops and pawn shops, gathering anything made of silver. Silver bullets, silver knives, even a silver pendant. I didn't know what would work, but I wasn't taking any chances. As the next full moon approached, I fortified my house, setting up traps and lining the windows and doors with silver. On the night of the full moon, I waited armed and ready. The growling started again, echoing through the night. The beast was back. This time, I was ready. As it attacked, I fought back with everything I had. The silver bullets seemed to have an effect, weakening the creature and causing it to retreat. But it wasn't enough to kill it. In the aftermath of the battle, I sat down to write my own notes in the manuscript. The curse was real, and it was still out there. But now, I had a plan. I would find Varkolak, uncover its secrets, and put an end to the curse once and for all. As I penned the final words, I knew that my journey was just beginning. The manuscript had opened a door to a dark and dangerous world, and there was no turning back. Also, in the end, just don't forget, it wasn't just a puppy. So you better click that subscribe button.